Welcome to today's episode of The American Paradox, where we dive into pressing social issues facing the United States today. I'm your host Peng Jiawei from Beijing Review, China's only national weekly news magazine in English. Today, we are diving into a major flashpoint in global trade, the de-escalation of the tariff war between China and the U.S. Joining me today is Einar Tangen, a senior fellow at the Tariff Institute and economic commentator with a sharp eye for strategic trends. Einar, welcome.
Thank you for having me. It is a pleasure to be here.
Let's dive in. The first meeting of the China-U.S. Economic and Trade Consultation Mechanism was held in London from June 9th to 10th. The two sides reached principled agreement on implementing the important consensus reached by the two heads of state during their phone call on June 5th, and the framework of measures to consolidate the outcomes of the economic and trade talks in Geneva, Switzerland in May, and made new progress in addressing each other's economic and trade concerns. Einar, what's your take on this outcome?
When the United States fires off a broadside against 180 countries, Donald Trump tried to convince the world that he had a royal straight flush, which is the biggest hand in poker. But everyone's looking at his cards going, I'm sorry, you don't have a royal straight flush. But the stature of the United States politically, economically, and militarily made many countries afraid. So many countries were wondering what to do. So at this point, China is doing what is necessary. I think China wants to bring Trump to reality, and that's what we have seen with these talks.
So what are the factors behind the de-escalation?
In terms of why this has happened, it happened because he was forced to. He didn't have any other choices out there. The U.S. is in essence stabbing itself in an attempt to hurt others. There are all sorts of reasons why this didn't work. The idea of empty shelves, higher prices, unemployment, and higher interest rates on bonds at a time when the U.S. is going to be refinancing $18 trillion in the next few years. These are the three things that Donald Trump cares about: his polls, what the markets are doing, and what the news stations are saying. He's a person who has a fairly developed ego. Now, he's not ideological. He can turn on a dime. It doesn't matter to him. Right? He's transactional. You take whatever you can. If you can't do it, you move on. So he's going to move on. The question is to what?
Einar, I wonder, how do you think the tariff policies will affect everyday Americans?
Individuals in America are under severe economic stress. Prior to the election, over 70% of American families felt that they were living paycheck to paycheck. It means there's nothing left over. Now, the reality might have been a little bit different, but the fact is that's how they felt. Now, imagine how they feel today with inflation going up, prices, the idea that empty shelves will increase prices even more above what would be normally required because of these tariffs. Throughout the logistics sector of the United States, people are being laid off. Now, maybe they'll start coming back as demand comes back due to the fact that they've come to terms on these tariffs. But it is a perfect example of an own goal. That this idea that you can impose things on people and it's going to work out to your benefit when you live in a world where everything you do has an opposite and equal consequence. Donald Trump is learning that. But, he doesn't accept failure easily, and he will pivot to other things. The question is what? There was a phase one agreement where China agreed to buy American goods, both basically energy and agriculture, and that was working for a while. It failed because of COVID and also additional actions by Trump, which made it impossible to carry through. But at this point, it looks like it will be a phase two.
So I wonder, how will these affect American businesses besides the everyday people?
So businesses, their base is being cut down as people don't have enough money, right? And then in addition to that, there's the uncertainty factor. And then on top of that are the tariffs. So many small businesses in America depend on things that they buy from China, from Vietnam, from all over the world. 1 in every $4 in the United States is spent on imported goods. 1/4 of the entire economy in terms of buying. So this is not something you can flip off with a switch. And tariffs are taxes. They're not paid by the Chinese government or any other government. When the goods come to the U.S., whoever is importing them has to pay the tariff. And then they pass on what they cannot absorb to the American public, to the consumer. So all of these things are killing businesses. Their bankruptcies are at record highs. All right? They don't know where to turn.
Are tariffs a truly effective remedy for a trade deficit?
The short answer is no. Why does the U.S. have a trade deficit? I mean, an ongoing trade deficit. Well, because it consumes more than it actually produces. There's also this issue about the strength of the dollar. The reason countries and companies buy dollars and hold them is that they can go back and forth in dollars to whoever they're buying or selling to, right? But they don't have to have the additional cost of putting it into their currency and then switching it back. So they keep dollars, and they keep them generally in U.S. treasuries. And this makes the dollar very strong. Because it's strong and people have faith in it, the interest rate is low. So low interest rates are great because you can borrow lots of money. It's very cheap. And when your dollar's strong, guess what that does? A strong dollar means that it doesn't make sense for me to make it in my country because I can buy it for cheaper from somebody else. So America's problems were caused by its own system. A strong dollar makes it impossible to produce in your own country. All right? Now, they blame China as if China went in the middle of the night and they gathered up all these jobs, put them in their pocket, and ran back to China. It doesn't even make sense. All right? The decisions were made in corporate boardrooms for two reasons. One, hey, the market in China, we need to be there. But the second is we can produce there cheaper. And if we don't, and our competitor does, we'll be out of business. So competitive pressure is there. But underlying it, everything, is the strength of the dollar. This is the problem in America in a nutshell. There is no reflection, all right? No sense of we need to understand what's happening. It's always somebody else's fault. You know, the political parties don't want to admit that in 1971, 61% of the population was middle class. In 2024, they did a study, median income from the previous year, only 40% of America was middle class. So many Americans today are just trying to survive. And unfortunately, they can be easily taken in by somebody who promises that it's really simple, I can solve it all. And it's not the fault of the Democrats and the Republicans, it's the fault of both of them. China can be the adult in the room, but you're dealing with a spoiled child that doesn't want to reflect on its actions.
So how can it learn to reflect?
It's not something that China can make the United States do. The United States is a sovereign, powerful nation and has many resources. It's not going to collapse tomorrow or anything like that. But it has to start understanding that it's a part of the world. It's not the ruler of the world.
Einar, what about the global implications? How will this easing of tensions reshape the global economic landscape?
We need to come together despite past differences. China has proposed a world that is based on three principles, right? Security initiative. Every country needs to be secure. Development. Every country needs to have a path to development and respect. Each country is sovereign. It should make the decisions about its country and its people. This is not ideological. It doesn't say you should be one thing or another. It just says in order for you not to be chaos, chaos is defined as everybody for themselves. Because then that's the law of the jungle. I'm bigger than you. I just take what I want. This is what Donald Trump is saying. I'll take Greenland. I'll take Canada. China is not trying to take other countries or anything like this. They're saying we need to cooperate if we're going to go ahead. So you see two very, very different visions in the world today. All right? One is extractive. Donald Trump wanted to have these tariffs and these relationships bilateral, where the U.S. could use its collective might economically, politically, and militarily. So I would call that an extractive model of governance. China is a cooperative model. You see that in the Belt and Road. You see that in RCEP. You see that in almost every negotiation that China is in. Very, very different approaches. Donald Trump has changed the world, not in the direction he thought, to make America great again, but to expose America's weaknesses and the fact that we do have an interconnected globe.
That's a wonderful quote, and also a wonderful conclusion to our conversation, and that's a wrap for today.
Thank you.
As always, we will continue to track this story as it unfolds, but one thing is already clear. The global economy is shifting, and the old playbooks of hegemony or unilateralism no longer apply. If we want a better future, cooperation is the only way forward.
That's it for this episode of The American Paradox. What do you think? Let us know. This podcast is produced by Beijing Review. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to subscribe, leave us a comment, and share it with someone who's interested in this topic. Until next time, stay curious.